After I took the body mounts, or the body off, I found some shims. These things go directly underneath the body mount on the body. And then you have the rubber cushion, etc., and the bolt goes through all of it. But it's important to note which mounts these came from. This particular one came from mount 6. I'm going to go put it in the bag that I have my number 6 mount in my storage area, so that I know which one it goes on whenever I put this back together. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is take out the gas tank, but first I'm going to document through this video where all of the hoses and connections are. I'm going to start in the middle with the bladder, or the rubber cup that goes around the filler lid. That's what we had to disconnect to get it out of the body. And then the overflow tube runs over and goes through the notch at the first indentation in the gas tank, runs down the back, is bolted onto the cross member right here with a bracket, and then goes down to the bumper mount and is bolted on there again. Okay. Moving over to the straps. On the back side, there's a strap. It's bolted into the cross member here. Appears to be a welded nut on the back of the strap. Before I do that, I'm going to put some blaster on it, so hopefully we won't break any of the screws. This is probably the original tank to this car, because you can see where the build sheet was glued onto it. It's long gone, so we're not going to have that to let us know how this thing was built originally. Okay, over on the side, this apparently, since it goes to the top, is probably the return line, and it is smaller than the other line, so that's, I'm sure, what it is. Both of them are bolted right here on the frame, about midway of the gas tank. The return line goes inboard, the supply line goes outboard. There's a rubber hose that goes from the tank to the return. There's another rubber hose connected to the supply line, approximately here, and it routes underneath the little support here. We'll get a better picture of that from the bottom. Okay, going down, there's a clamp about at the rear of the cross member here. It runs, both of them run outboard of this little slot that is in the frame at approximately the support for the differential. For some reason, the supply line makes a detour here, and then there's another clamp just behind the hole right where the frame starts to go down. Then the line doglegs over to the edge of the frame, and it goes down over this support, runs in the back here. There are no supports here, or no connections there, I should say. Then it comes across the cross member of the frame here and is bolted on in the front of the cross member. Runs right up against this gusset, more or less. This is pretty caked up with dirt. Then about halfway between the transmission crossmember and the crossmember on the frame, there's a clamp with a bolt. Another clamp immediately behind the transmission crossmember. Another clamp right in front of the number 2 body mount. I'm sorry, that's the number 6 body mount. These are all running near the bottom of the frame. Then it goes up over the frame and runs across the top. And there's another clamp right near the idler arm, or the idler arm connection. Runs over across the frame, doglegs towards the fuel pump, and then goes to a rubber line that goes to the fuel pump. Okay, all of that was on the passenger side of the tank. Now we're over on the driver's side, and there's a device here that I'm sure is some sort of a component of the vapor return system. I'm not sure what it exactly does, but I would suspect if you're dropping the tank from underneath, you're going to have to take this off. But since I'm taking it off from the top, we won't have to deal with that at this point. I'll take it off when I'm doing something to the tank to keep it from rusting anymore. Okay, there's the vapor return line to the tank. And these lines do appear to be different sizes so that you wouldn't be able to get them mixed up. However, it's the bottom connection that goes to the tank, and you can tell the top is more or less shaped like a house. It's got a peak in the center, and the peak goes, of course, to the top. And then the top line from it goes, it's a rubber line, goes down to approximately the middle of the tank, and at that point converts to a metal line. There is a bolt and a bracket holding it on approximately a third of the way to the front of the tank from the front of the tank towards the back. Runs more or less towards the inboard side of the frame, and right behind the crossmember there's another bolt and a bracket. It comes past the slot that's approximately right in front of the crossmember that holds the differential, and then it jogs to the back as well. And there's another bolt and bracket holding it in right behind the hole in the frame that's right before it drops down. And just like on the supply and return lines on the other side, it runs back inside this brace, across the top of the cross member, down the front of the cross member, and along the gusset in the corner, and to a bolt and bracket halfway between the cross member and the transmission cross member. It's important to note here at this point that that vapor line is in the same bracket with the brake line, and the vapor line is below the brake line. Moving forward right in front of the transmission mount, there's another bracket bolted on there, and it runs near the bottom of the frame through the transmission mount, transmission cross member, and then again right in front of the number 2 mount. It actually stays nearer the bottom of the frame and goes over, and we're looking at this upside down now, so, but there's another bracket where it curves up right before, right after it curves up past the distribution block for the brake system, and then it converts to a rubber line. That rubber line is what we disconnected from the vapor canister. Okay, we're at the back end and we're getting ready to remove the fuel tank hangers. They ended up being 9/16 bolts that go through the hanger strap. There's a long bolt so that you can catch the strap easily when you're installing it, one on each side. So those will have to come out. I'll disconnect the vent tube or the drain tube from the cap area, and then I'll go top side and take off the lines, etc. I've spent about the last half hour, once I got the can of blaster in my hand, I went and hit every bolt I could find that I thought I could that might need it. So at least an initial shot on them so that they'll hopefully come out easier and save me time in the long run. But for now, I'm going to take these straps off. They're coated with undercoating on the other side, so it's probably going to take a little while. I'm probably going to have to go ahead and back them out, thread them in, clear the stuff out of the threads multiple times to get the bolts out. So that may take a while. Okay, this is that bolt from the back side, and it's out. Pretty long bolt. But once you get that out, then you're ready to remove the strap from that side. And it just pushes out of that little bracket, or the hole in the bracket, I should say. And then it goes over the top of the tank and it comes back, and in the back, it's just a hook. It just hooks onto this lip on the support. So once we take that off the top, that hook will just drop right off, and that side will be off. And then we'll repeat it on the other side and go up top to disconnect the lines. Okay, I got the bracket or the strap out of the hole in the support. I managed to wiggle a little bit of room on the side, able to pop it, get a screwdriver in between it, and just hopefully be able to pry this off. Having trouble reaching because the lift's in my way. I should have gotten on the other side of it, but okay, I've gotten under the lift now. There is a considerable lip on that thing. I'm going to have to get myself more slack, and I may have to take the other one off and pull them both off at the same time in order to do that. Okay, while I was under here, I noticed that the supply line for the fuel tank also has to be removed one way or another. We could disconnect it from up top, but this bolt here has to be taken out, otherwise you won't get it, or the line has to be disconnected. These bolts are 1/2 inch. On this you would need either a deep socket, that's what I'm going to use, or a very short extension so that you can get past this lip. And you have to take the drain hose here and here off, as well as this supply line here. They have the clip type connector. I prefer to use the screw type connector. I think you can get a better seal with that. Since I'm not going after an NCRS quality restoration here, I don't really care about the originality of that. Okay, that's loose. It's just a matter now of loosening that, and I'll be able to pull it off. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention about this, even though I've siphoned the tank and there should be little, if any, gas in there, I don't trust it. I am going to set up a 5-gallon metal can under it to catch any gasoline that might still be in there that's going to come out when I remove that hose. You have to remember that gasoline is highly flammable and you don't want to have any problems with it. And as a matter of fact, I think I'm going to go shut off my compressor so that it does not kick on while I've got gas fumes in the shop here. I'm going to open up the door and air it out, but don't want any sparks at all. Okay, I'm just about ready to take that off, and just in case you were thinking I was trying to drain this thing into a gasoline can, no, I've got a big 5-gallon bucket, old paint bucket, to catch anything that's potentially going to come out of there. Just a couple of drips, not much at all. So I know that there probably is still some in the tank. I'm going to be careful when I take it off so that I don't tip it and dump it out that spout. Okay, now that both of the straps are loose and out of those clips, we can flip it forward a little bit, and that should give us the ability to take these out the bottom. One has come out easy. Driver's side is, there it is. So that's what holds the tank on. I've got a couple more hoses to disconnect and then the tank should lift off. I'm going to start with the hose on the passenger side. That's the return hose. And I'm going to proceed to the driver's side. And I'll take the vent hose off. The other can stay on for now. That will allow me to lift the tank off. Out of the way. There is a little bit of gasoline sloshing around in there. Now when I set this down, I have to be careful to set it down so the nipple where the gas supply line came out of is not resting on the ground. I don't want to damage that.